Vamos aproveitar esses segundos de pausa no podcast para falar sobre horas. Conheça o novo Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra, projetado para resistir a qualquer desafio e superar limites com o poder do Galaxy AI. Quer garantir o seu? Ganhe a partir de R$800 de desconto no seu relógio usado. Acesse samsung.com.br e saiba mais. Galaxy Watch Ultra. Galaxy AI chegou.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to be talking about what does the post-honeymoon stage look like for happy couples, right? So we'll talk about the stages of relationships for all couples, and then what it looks like when you are out of the honeymoon phase but still having sex, which is something that a lot of unhappy people do not even believe happens. And I will tell you that it happens and how and what that looks like and why you may not understand. You know, spoiler, obviously it's because you didn't see it ever or experience it yourself. Before that, though, please do subscribe. The most recent subscriber episode is about how often, how, and why to have close, deep, connected conversations. Because for women, this is frequently the same as what sex is for men. It's like the only way they really feel close, married, in love. And if the last time you had a real in-depth conversation where you were interested in your wife's inner world was, 10 years ago, then it is likely that was also the last time you experienced a blowjob, So we'll talk about that in that episode. You do have to subscribe to hear that, and you get over 120 other episodes. So it is a really good deal, good bang for your buck for the $5.99 a month that you would spend for the subscription. Separately, if you're interested in all of this stuff, you should be a member of my secret Facebook group, which has over 300 members and is a real bastion of intellectual and funny conversations about relationships, sex, family, parenting, divorce, dating, all sorts of stuff. All right, and that would be separate. I do not own these companies. I cannot merge them into one fee, as people have asked. That is $4.99. So in a worst case scenario, you would be spending $11 a month for a really amazing, if I do say so myself, amount of content and ability to participate and interact with others in the Facebook group. Okay, so moving on. All right, what are the stages of relationships? So the stages of relationships are honeymoon stage, which is about 18 months to 3 years after commitment starts. So limerence, or the infatuation stage, where you're obsessed with somebody, can go on indefinitely if there's uncertainty. But as soon as there is certainty, such as marriage, your body and brain react differently to that. You move forward. The clock starts, right? The clock starts because basically, as I've said so many times, our genetic diversity of our species would be better if women had sex with a different guy every time they ovulated, right? So that's what your body wants you to do. So you meet a guy, get married, right? Before that, your body doesn't really know that you're gonna have a baby with him. Neither does the woman in most cases. Like literally, she does not know that it's game on. So as soon as she knows it's game on, then the clock kind of starts. It's not a, remember, this is not a clock that women start themselves. This is kind of how your brain works. Remember, you don't feel as excited about your job anymore as you did in the first year, right? Or having a child. Remember, that used to be like, this huge thing when you had a baby. You ran home from work to see the new baby. You don't run home from work to see your 13-year-old, not the same way. You love them, but it's different. There's not the novelty response of literally a new thing in your life. So you got to understand what the honeymoon stage is and isn't, and what it isn't is something that women have purposefully and obstructively designed to fuck with you, right? And people who do think that were raised in pretty bad homes, so I feel for you, but that paranoia does not help your relationship any. So anyway, the clock starts at the moment of marriage, let's say, 18 months to 3 years. Why? Get married, have a baby, nurse a baby, wean a baby, and your body wants you to move on to the next dude. You don't want to move on to the next dude because that's not what our society does, and that's not what people want for their lives. But your body, is different and your brain is different and whatever. So the novelty response fades. What happens then? Goes to disillusionment phase. So this is when people think, oh my God, I didn't marry the best person in the whole universe after all. They're a flawed person. Check this out. You know what? I really see where their ex-girlfriend / ex-boyfriend / ex-husband or wife is coming from. And I see, why they're like their father or mother after all. Holy shit. Why did I not understand this before? That they are just not a complete paragon of virtue in every regard. And you know what? They could be pretty annoying. So that's the disillusionment phase. Healthy couples then get fairly quickly to, not like super quick, it's a couple years, into the acceptance phase, which is, this is a flawed person, but I love them and I want a life with them. And I'm a flawed person too. And we're flawed in these different ways. And we can help each other and we can accept each other and, everything's fine. And this is the person that I love and I want to build a life with, etc. And why do some people get to that sooner? Because they had parents that were kind of like that. They had an easy template. It's like saying, why are people who learn English at a younger age better at English usually? Well, because they never had to really learn English. It was like, or any language, you know what I mean? It's like, it was there. It's like a fish doesn't know it's in water and you didn't know you were speaking English, if you're an English speaker or whatever. And so the point is like, if you had a happy marriage that you saw growing up, you never had to worry about learning how to do it. It was the air that you breathed. So then you learn how to interact like that. And likely you're attracted to somebody else who came from a happy family as well. And then you both interact in the ways that you didn't even realize you were learning to interact. And it goes usually pretty well. And then there's the other people, right? All the adult children of dysfunctional families who have no fucking idea how to interact in a marriage because all they saw was disconnect or yelling or cheating or betrayal or violence or drunkenness or whatever. And so they have to learn from scratch how to be in a relationship. And so they frequently, escape into fantasies of this wonderful romantic love that will be redemptive and that will be different for them than it was for their parents, but they have no skills at how to do that at all. So frequently instead, they end up replicating what they saw growing up, much to their chagrin and, extreme frustration and sadness. So that for those people, the disillusionment stage starts earlier, lasts longer, and frequently leads to the dissolution of the marriage. And it's because they also find other people that are adult children of dysfunctional families. You don't get randomly assigned to marriages. Like goes to like. You subconsciously find each other. Preoccupied finds avoidant and vice versa. And, that's how it goes. So then what can you do? Well, when you're in the disillusionment phase, you can go to therapy, which is the only time people go to the disillusionment phase, obviously, or go to therapy, obviously, because they don't go in the honeymoon stage. And you can work on creating new patterns, right? But for some people, the disillusionment phase, remits. For many people, it remits. And so then what does that look like? And what does what is a happy marriage at like year 5 or 10? What does that really look like? Well, I'll tell you, it looks pretty good. People do not have the same lust as they did in the honeymoon phase. Some of the men may, not the same as the honeymoon phase, right? Where it was like, oh my God, is she really going to sleep with me? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I mean, they may still be asking, is she really going to sleep with me? But it's not, oh my God, oh my God. And it's not that level of like super adrenaline fueled new relationship energy, but people are happy to see each other. They consider each other best friends. They're attracted to each other. The woman, again, may have only responsive desire post-monogamy, which means she never really looks at him unless she's ovulating and gets, quote, horny. But yet she still does want to have sex with him because it is a good experience and it feels good once she starts, etc., etc. She finds him objectively to be attractive. He finds her to be very attractive. As I've discussed, it's better when the guy thinks the woman's more attractive than himself and when she agrees. I have a lot of podcasts and posts on that. Men need to think their wives are really hot for things to work. And they generally are on the same page with their values. Raising kids, making money or not, or whatever, where they live. The involvement of the in-laws, whatever the case may be. People have a lot of things that they grapple with. The role of work, work-life balance, hobbies, etc. So generally, for happy couples, the post-honeymoon stage is still not like the honeymoon phase. So there are no people that have multiple kids that are having sex multiple times a day, like the same way as they did in the honeymoon phase, racing home from work for a quickie, before they pick the kids up from daycare. Maybe sometimes, like if she's ovulating, if it's an anniversary, if he did something particularly wonderful. But again, you just got to understand, like, I have a lot of stuff out about this because I even just had a podcast about like aging and why like people increasingly don't accept aging. It's like people kind of convince themselves more and more with every passing year and advances in technology and medication and whatever that like they can somehow stop time. You can't stop time. You may be totally in love with your wife, but it's still not like she walks in a house and you like want to fall over because you're just so taken with her beauty. Not every day, at least. Sometimes you're on a fucking work call, So, and it's the same thing times a million on her end because female hormones are more responsive to not being in the honeymoon stage anymore. But that does not mean that people are not happy and that they don't develop longer lasting and deeper connections over time. They're obviously much more invested in and committed to each other with every passing day, week, year, etc. So happy couples still are not, I have this thing, are other married people having spontaneous sex? I had a recent podcast. They're not doing it on the kitchen table with small kids. It's not like everybody but you is having this like ongoing love affair. Like love affairs peter out. And in happy couples, healthy couples, they are replaced by a stronger bond than the original honeymoon stage, which yes, still does have connected sex and attraction and romantic love, but also has a really strong percent, of the pie chart is a friendship and a team partnership, of raising kids, etc. So for couples that are unhappy, the disillusionment phase lasts forever. It can last the rest of the marriage. They had a brief honeymoon phase and then they're basically resentful and disillusioned for 50 years. And that is unfortunately common. In especially the people I see, that's a lot of their parents, were just unhappily married forever. And so the child thinks, okay, it's going to be different for me. I'm going to basically stay in romantic love forever, but that's not possible. So then they go into the disillusionment phase, and because they have no template for how you would kind of come back out of that, into this acceptance phase. Their parents never did that. It's either on or off for them. It's either that they somehow get back to the honeymoon stage, which is impossible. So those are the guys who are always telling their wife, I want it to be like it was at the beginning. You have to do this in bed and this in bed and this in bed and this in bed. And you have to look at me like this and you have to say these words and you have to wear these clothes. Like it's like they're trying to like direct a movie where they get to be an eternal honeymoon stage. And there's women who do that too. No, you're supposed to be romantic. You're supposed to be looking at me and talking to me. And like, when I come into the room, you're supposed to look up in this way and say this and that. They're also trying to like socially engineer themselves an endless honeymoon phase. Because in the minds of people, of adult children of dysfunctional families who grapple with this, there's really only two stages. It's romantic fairy tale love or disappointment, anger, and frustration. So of course they want to stay in the honeymoon phase. Who wouldn't? But that's impossible. So they set themselves up to fail. So what really the reality is that with healthy couples, yes, there's a disillusionment phase. There's frequently some more fighting after that. Even with couples that are happy, they will have a little bit more fighting a few years in. After a honeymoon stage wears off, power struggles and deciding how the family's going to look and who does what and what the roles are going to be and things about kids and money and all sorts of stuff. But they have these templates and they figure, okay, fine, my husband/wife isn't perfect. Then again, my mother, never thought my father was perfect, but she loved him, because of his strengths. What are my partner's strengths? They don't articulate it necessarily, but that's kind of how it goes. Well, mom and dad weren't perfect either, but they were able to make it work and they loved each other. So what do you do if you don't have that template? Well, therapy is that template. Therapy, reading books, listening to this podcast and others, you got to kind of educate yourself basically to reparent yourself. And if your partner is also a person that really wants the relationship to work, then they can engage. Couples counseling basically helps you normalize. Like there's so many times I'm in couples counseling with people and they tell me how often they fight. And I'm like, no, you can't fight that much. That's not healthy. They're like, no, people fight. I'm like, no, people don't fight every day. And actually, I just did a video on this because I looked up the statistics finally. So I got statistics. It's only 8% of couples fight every day. You're not supposed to fight every day. That is not normal. That is not good. And especially if you have kids, it's extremely bad. And I've made various posts and podcasts on how stressed out they get, by your fighting, which you think is like no biggie, and to them is the end of the world. So anyway, the point is you're not supposed to fight every day. And a lot of couples don't even know that because they came from two families where the people fought every day. So how the hell do they know that that's not normal? And so, or anything. People will say like, oh, people don't really have sex after they have kids. And I'll be like, that's not true at all. Of course they do. And why do you think that? Well, my parents certainly didn't. My mother told me that, or they slept in separate rooms and I never saw them touch. And, they raised us children and we were fine. Because that person has never interrogated, oh, well, shit, is that the only way to live? Probably not. Like, were mom and dad really happy? They certainly never seemed happy. Yes, they did raise us kids, but hey, shit, all 4 of us have gotten divorced, or whatever. So the point is that it's real hard, but not impossible, to reshape your template of the disillusionment and acceptance phases. Everybody likes the honeymoon phase, but after that, you definitely have to reframe marriage. Everybody does. Even the happy couples do. Especially the happy couples. They are so happy because they are actively always thinking to themselves, okay, I don't like this about him, but I do like this about him. Okay, I can't change this about him, but maybe I'll ask him to change this. Maybe I'm the problem with this and I'm going to change this in myself. Maybe the issue is really that I'm too much this and he's too much that. And those two things don't mix, so I'm going to try to be less of this, he's going to try to be less of that. And these sorts of machinations are below the level of consciousness, sometimes above the level. And if you came from a family where you saw mom and dad possibly sometimes grapple with personality differences, but then it ended up working out, then that's second nature. If you didn't, you're going to have to put the work in with teaching yourself about relationships, as you probably already know because you've listened to how many episodes of this already, right? And, therapy can really help. Not always couples. Couples is great, but also individual can really help an individual go deeper. You don't have to waste half the session listening to your partner. It's not always a waste, you know what I mean? But like you can talk specifically about your own background, your assumptions, your expectations about marriage, your behavior, how to reframe how you think, So it's like couples counseling is great, but it's massively expedited if both people have gone through individual counseling, or at least one. Hopefully 2. All right, well, I hope you found this interesting. I hope that you subscribe as well. And have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.